found some tweets by this man. He'll fuck a dog before he fucks a black woman. But the dog that he fucks before fucking the black woman's gotta be white.
New details in a deadly shooting out of Burke County, and a suspect is now behind bars tonight.
Burke County deputies say this happened just before 6 o'clock Sunday morning at a home in Keysville. There, investigators found the body of 30-year-old Telvin Osborne, who was later pronounced dead from a gunshot wound to the chest.
And today, 25-year-old Hannah Cobb was arrested and charged with felony involuntary manslaughter. Authorities say she's the one who notified authorities about this shooting.
There's backlash, right? You have people saying, R.I.P., rest in preference.
Oh, that shit got me coughing. Holy.
There was another tweet by him. Team White Girls.
The internet is never ever losing. I'm telling you guys.
Obviously, if you want support of black people, you better have a history that shows that you love your people.
On a cold February morning, in a quiet, unassuming town of Midville, Georgia, Telvin Telbo Osborne's life came to a sudden, tragic end. He was just 30 years old, a devoted father of 4, a hard-working man trying to make it in a small town that seemed to know every secret and every mistake. The night that would alter everything began as so many others do. A few drinks, a bit of fun, and what should have been an ordinary evening. But what happened next would leave a family in pieces and a town struggling to understand the truth. Telvin, known by friends as Telbo, had a presence that filled a room, with a smile that could light up the darkest corner and a sense of loyalty that ran deep, especially when it came to his family and his partner, Hannah Cobb. The two had been through their fair share of ups and downs, yet through it all, Telvin was always there for Hannah. They had 2 children together, and like any couple, they had their arguments. But no one could have foreseen how things would end that night. Before we go further into this heart-wrenching story, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to get more real-life stories like this one. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. The night of February 23rd, 2025. It was supposed to be an ordinary night. Telvin and Hannah had been out together, drinking a little more than they probably should have. Arguments were common between them, but this one? It escalated quickly. The argument wasn't just words anymore. It was full of anger and frustration. They found themselves at a point of no return. Hannah was handling a firearm, an object that shouldn't have been near the heated emotions of the moment. She claimed it was an accident, a simple mistake while trying to clear the gun, she said. But in that moment, everything shifted. The sound of a single gunshot shattered the night, ringing through the house and leaving Telvin lifeless. In the blink of an eye, a life was gone. The authorities arrived at their home on 4 Points Road to find Telvin, suffering from a gunshot wound to the chest. Despite being rushed to the hospital, he was pronounced dead shortly after arrival. Hannah's frantic 911 call echoed in the background, claiming it was all a mistake.
I'm so sorry, baby.
But this wasn't just a simple accident, was it? As the investigation began, pieces of the puzzle began to fall apart. The truth was far more complex than it seemed. What started as a tragic shooting soon turned into a web of lies, secrets, and buried emotions. What really happened in that house that night? Was it a crime of passion or something darker? Hold on tight. This story is just beginning. Stay tuned, because the answers may not be as simple as they first appear. The hours following Telvin Osborne's death were filled with confusion and disbelief. The initial call to 911 had made it sound so simple, an accident, a tragic mistake. Hannah Cobb, the mother of his children, said she was cleaning a firearm when it went off, shooting Telvin in the chest. It was hard to imagine how something so horrible could be an accident. Yet, Hannah stuck to her story, despite the growing doubt. But the more investigators dug into the case, the more things didn't add up. Sheriff Alfonso Williams made it clear, this wasn't just a tragic accident. Something didn't sit right. There was too much to question, too many gaps in the story. How could someone claim an accidental shooting when the weapon was allegedly handled in a moment of heated argument? Sheriff Williams didn't hold back, stating, "This is not a simple accident. This is a reckless act that led to a life being taken." The investigation continued, and Hannah's initial version of events began to crumble. Involuntary manslaughter, simple battery, family violence, and reckless conduct became the charges she faced. So, do you think it was really an accident? Or is there more to this story? Let me know in the comments below, and make sure to like and share this video. As the case unfolded, it wasn't just the investigation that caught attention. Osbourne's past came rushing back into the spotlight. The internet began to churn with old social media posts of Telvin's, and what it uncovered wasn't pretty. Telvin had openly expressed his dislike for black women, even going as far as saying he'd rather sleep with a dog than be with a black woman. The posts were disgusting, the kind of words that stayed with you long after reading them. People couldn't ignore the timing. A man who had spent years expressing such hatred was now gone. But was his death something to mourn? Or was this just the consequence of his own actions? The backlash was swift and loud, especially from the black community. Some felt indifferent, even angered, by the loss of a man who had so publicly expressed his disdain for them. The hashtag #BlackWomenStayOutOfThis began to trend as many women refused to participate in any fundraisers or memorials for Osbourne. They were clear. He had made his feelings known in life, and they weren't going to be there for him in death. It's a tough question. Do people deserve to be mourned even when they've left behind such hurtful words? Let me know what you think below, and don't forget to hit that like button. Within Osbourne's own family, the reaction was more complicated. His brother, Rocco, was vocal in questioning the circumstances of the shooting. He didn't believe Hannah's story. Rocco even went so far as to accuse her of foul play, hinting that something about the whole situation didn't feel right. His public comments sparked further division, and soon the whole family was caught in a whirlwind of mixed emotions. While some of Telvin's relatives set up a GoFundMe campaign for his funeral expenses, others, like Rocco, took to social media, accusing black women of celebrating Telvin's death. It was a heartbreaking and confusing scene. On one hand, there were people who felt the need to rally behind him, but on the other, some members of his own family felt like the death was justified based on the history of his actions. It was a tragedy that cut deeper than anyone realized. For the family, for the community, and especially for the children left behind, who would never know their father the way they should have. The dispute over Telvin's life, his legacy, and his words continued to divide the people who should have been closest to him. The investigation was far from over, but the case had already sparked something bigger than anyone had expected. The lines between right and wrong, good and bad, were blurring, and the people who thought they had the answers found themselves questioning everything. Would justice be served? And if so, who would be the real victim in the end? As the investigation into Telvin Osbourne's death continued, questions began to surface about the fairness of the trial that would follow. One key concern was the role of Hannah Cobb's father, a local law enforcement officer. People began to wonder if her family connections could potentially influence the case. Would she receive leniency because of her father's position? Would the system be fair, or would it bend under the pressure of local ties? This concern wasn't unfounded. History had shown that cases involving white women and black men had sometimes resulted in minimal consequences, even when the evidence seemed to point to a different outcome. The question lingered in the air. Would Cobb get off lightly simply because of her connections? The stakes were higher than ever. This case had already sparked a massive public debate, but the trial was about to amplify everything. Would justice be served, or would race and family ties play a bigger role in the verdict than anyone expected? This case wasn't just about one man's death. It was a reflection of much deeper issues, racial tensions that had been simmering for years. Osbourne's past remarks about black women had already put a strain on how his death was perceived. His words had caused damage long before his tragic end. And now, with his death, the divide was even wider. The emotional impact of the case was deeply felt in the black community. Many had seen the posts, heard the hate-filled words, and understood the kind of man Osbourne had been. For some, there was no sympathy. He had made his feelings clear in life, and now, in death, many felt no obligation to mourn. The hashtag #BlackWomenStayOutOfThis trended because so many refused to support a man who had disrespected them so publicly. This wasn't just a legal battle. It was a battle for how the Black community would be seen and treated. It was about the scars that had been left on generations by people like Osborne, and whether or not the justice system would finally take those scars seriously. As the legal proceedings unfolded, it became clear that Cobb's trial would be the next chapter in this explosive story. The public was waiting for answers. Would the charges stick? Would justice truly be done? Or would the legal system fail those who had been wronged, especially given the complex dynamics surrounding this case? The trial would reveal the truth, or at least part of it. But with every twist and turn, one question remained. Who would really pay for what happened that night? The case of Telvin Osborne's death has revealed so much more than just a tragic shooting. It's brought to light the deep divide between race, relationships, and self-hatred. Osborne's actions and his words left a lasting impression, and his death became a symbol of the challenges the Black community still faces. In the end, this case isn't just about what happened on February 23, 2025. It's about how we handle the things that divide us, the things we say, and the things we do when emotions run high. It's about understanding the impact of alcohol and firearms, and how recklessness can cost more than just lives. As the trial continues, one thing is clear: justice can be a complicated thing. It's up to the courts to decide, but it's up to all of us to learn from the mistakes that led to this tragedy. It's about making better choices, understanding the weight of our actions, and fighting for a justice system that treats everyone equally. If you've made it this far, be sure to like and subscribe to stay informed as this story continues to unfold in the courtroom. Share your thoughts below and be part of the conversation. What do you think should happen next? Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more updates. And remember, some stories go beyond the headlines. Don't miss the next chapter in this unfolding case.